Okay, so max range test on the Model Y here. We've got 327 miles of range. We're going to try to skip over a supercharger and get to one that's 223 miles away, but as you can see, there's a little bit of snow on the ground. It's like probably 25 degrees out here right now. Should warm up to around 40 by middle of the day, but we're going to see if we can actually get to a supercharger that's 223 miles away with 327 miles of range. We should be able to, I'm hoping so, but I guess we'll see how it goes. All right, guys, so we're about 61 miles into the trip here, and when I first entered my destination in, which is the supercharger, which was about 221 miles away, it said I only had 5%. I was only going to get there with 5%, and I needed to stay below 75 miles an hour. The speed limit most of the way right now is 70 miles an hour. Probably in 10 miles or so, it's going to go to 80. So most of the trip, it's going to be 80 miles an hour. I've been staying below the speed limit, which is really hard to do. I mean, at 70 miles an hour speed limit, I've been going like between 67 to 69 miles an hour. But the estimation of what my battery is going to be at the supercharger has now gone up to 15%. So 15% is a lot better margin than 5%. So that means it gives me a little more cushion, especially because 100 miles or so are going to be through some like mountain passes, some elevation changes, and it could be a little bit colder there. Right now it's 35 degrees out, so the car is using energy to heat the battery pack, to keep that battery pack, and to heat the cabin. Now, a couple things I'm doing to conserve energy. One is I precondition the battery, where I set the time I was going to depart. That way the battery was going to be warm, the cabin's going to be warm, so I didn't have to use any extra energy to do that when I got into the car. And then I also overinflated my tires. The recommended PSI is 42 PSI for the tires. I inflated them to 44, so that way they're a little overinflated, so that way the rolling resistance will be a little less. So that was something I did. And then also the climate control. If you see here, I'm keeping it at 65. It's 35 degrees out, but I'm keeping it at 65 degrees. And I have the fan speed low, and then I'm kind of using the steering wheel heater and then the seat heaters to really use the majority of the heating. So if we can keep the climate control at a lower temperature, I think that's going to help. And then I think the big one's just going to be speed. If I can just stay at or around, or probably just below the speed limit, I should be able to get to the supercharger with at least probably a 15%. Even if it's less, even if it's 10%, that's fine. Usually the lower the better. So when you get into the supercharger, you want your percentage to be as low as possible, because then you'll charge up even faster. And the Model Y, having the latest charging hardware, you can charge at the 250 kilowatt chargers, which the charger that we're going to here has those faster chargers. So we're going to keep going here and keep you updated on our progress. Okay, we've gone about 190 miles. Temperature's warmed up a little bit. It's 38 degrees, so it's been between high 20s and mid 30s this whole trip. So that's actually the kind of worst case scenario for these cars. Cold temperatures really affect the range. So I actually have I have 78 miles of range left with 35 miles to go. I'll get there at 6% charge, which might be a little bit more. 10% is an okay buffer. I've actually been going below the speed limit. I've been going, it's when the speed limit's been 80 miles an hour, I've been going like 78, 79. And that kind of, when I started going that speed, it really dropped it down from like a 15% buffer all the way down to 10. Now it's 6%. So speed does have probably the biggest factor on how much battery you're using, how much range you're using. So we'll probably get in there with 5 to 6%. I've got a mountain pass up through here that we've got to go through before we get to this charging station in about 28 miles. So I'm going to go a little bit slower up the mountain pass just to conserve a little bit of the battery, but almost there. So I started with 327 miles of range, and I'll go a total of 221 miles of range, and that I probably couldn't really safely go any further than that. So that's when it's cold and you're going close to 80 miles an hour, which is the speed limit here.
you know, you just don't get the full range out of your battery. But I am glad that I'm going to be able to make it that far. I didn't have to do an in-between stop, which I normally would do on my other car, my Model S, that doesn't have as much range. So cutting out a charging stop really makes for a big difference. So even going a little bit slower to be able to make it to the next charging station I think it's going to make a bit bigger difference on the total trip time. So when we get to the station, we'll see what our percentage is at. The lower the better, because that 250 kilowatt charger is going to be able to charge that battery up really fast when it's low like that. And we only need probably 220 miles or so of range, because our next station will be, what do we say, is 150 miles? So we probably want about 220 miles of range, kind of a buffer. So, all right, we are approaching the exit for the supercharger here with 6% battery, or it says 20 miles of range. So I don't think I could have gone. I mean, if this charger was any further away, I would not. I don't think I'd be able to make it. Also, I was just thinking, if this was the performance version, I wouldn't have made it on the performance version. The performance version only has like 305 miles. This has 326. 20 miles is my buffer, and I would probably be on the side of the road right now. There is a little bit of a reserve in the battery, so I don't, you know, zero is not zero, but it actually is good for charging. That I have like 5%, 6% left in the battery, so this thing's going to charge up super fast. With these here, they have like 24 250 kilowatt chargers here. You see I'll show you on the top of these chargers, it says 250 kilowatts. That's what you want. Alrighty. Okay, we made it. I just got to this supercharger here, and I have 5%, 6% battery left, 21 miles of range. So I'm curious to see how fast this is going to charge up, because this is a 250 kilowatt charger. I have my charge limit set to full, and you see my kilowatts here. Here we go. Kilowatts are, wow, look at that. Look at that miles per hour charging. Wow, look at that 250. I mean, this thing is just, going really fast. Guys, so I made it to my destination here. We finished our road trip with this car, just the first leg of the road trip. We still got to go back home in a few days, but I'm super excited with this car. I can't tell you how impressed I am with this car and this road trip. So we normally would do this same kind of leg, this road trip, 420 mile road trip, and this road trip we only had to stop twice. We stopped twice. Once at about 220 miles, which was that supercharger we left in the video here, and also we stopped again about another 150 miles. Our charging stops in a 420 mile road trip, we stopped for 40 minutes total for charging. That was super impressive, guys. If you really can't appreciate that unless you've road tripped in an older Tesla. Like I have a 2015 Model S that we road trip frequently in because it has the free supercharging. But that we have to stop at least 3 times, and it's at least 35 to 40 minutes per time. So this has cut a ton of time off of the charging, and only 2 stops. So I'm super impressed with this, especially because when I got to that supercharger, I had 6% battery left, and I was at the supercharger for 22 minutes, and I got 202 miles of range put back into the battery of this thing, and I had a 30% range estimation to get to the next one. So I had an adequate buffer, and then for the rest of the trip I was able to go at least the speed limit. So it's just that first leg of the trip that I had to be a little more conservative with. But guys, these new Teslas, the Model Y, the 3, the S, the X, they have these new 250 kilowatt chargers on board that can accommodate those higher charging speeds, and the larger batteries, over 300 miles of battery. Guys, it's a game changer electric cars. It really is. And so I'm super impressed with this car. Super impressed with how it handled the road. It handled great on the road, very comfortable, and you're super excited to be able to take this on trips now, because it's just going to be a lot easier, it's a lot better to travel in this thing than in an older Tesla. So guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. I'm going to do one on the way back home. We're going to do some other things on the road trip, but Guys, hit that thumbs up. Stay tuned to the channel for more videos. Subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.